Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here, another review. Today we're gonna be reviewing the second half of My Hero Academia third season. So the two arcs we're gonna be reviewing is the Provisional Hero License Exam arc, which is 11 episodes, and then one that's 2 episodes, which is Shi Hasaki arc, which is essentially. So we'll get to what those are in a bit, but. In our last video, we talked about the first half of Season 3, which was phenomenal. In my opinion, I think that this half, even though it was very good, and you can tell where they're kind of going by developing these characters a bit more, I think it's a bit lackluster compared to the other half, but I do feel like it's gearing us up for what's going to be even bigger and better going forward in Season 4. So I am still very excited about the show, and I still think it's really great overall, and how they're coming to terms with stuff. But so the first major arc, the first story arc here was a UA Begins saga. So the first saga, I should say, and that had all from seasons 1, 2, and then half of season 3, the first half, and then this saga is called Rise of Villains Saga. So you can kind of see where it's going here, where now the villains are getting a little traction, and this starts with the Provisional Hero one and the second one here, the Shi arc. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the beginning of this saga. And this kind of saga begins in a world where, All Might is finally, he's retired. He doesn't have any more power left in him that he can use for a long period of time and, actually fight crime. So now you see the Everlast guy, who's the fire guy, who was number 2 for a long time, come into power, and now he's number 1. And you kind of see him. The public's very split on him. Half of the people hate him, half of the people love him. So he's a more divisive character than All Might was, which just everyone loved All Might. Or the general populace loved All Might. But yeah, so you kind of get into that. And the Provisional Hero licensing arc starts at episode 51. And it really goes up until about Deku versus Kacchan Part 2, which is episode 61. So you have those 11 episodes there. And the actual content of it itself was pretty alright, I guess. The actual arc was alright. It was interesting to kind of see them. It was more interesting to me to see other schools compete with them and compare with them than it was to actually see Deku and them kind of utilize their powers. But they do go through this. Only 2 people in their class, in class 1A, don't pass, and that's Shoto and Bakugo. Bakugo doesn't pass because he's more hot-tempered. He doesn't know how to comfort people. Otherwise, it seemed like he was doing great, but otherwise than that, and then Shoto got into, essentially, he started arguing with another hero, who was this wind guy, who I don't remember his name, but he is kind of intense. But he was a wind guy that knew Shoto, or not knew, but he knows Shoto from the when they were testing out his recommendation. Which I didn't actually know that the students that were recommended to UA actually had to compete. I thought it was just they were in, but it does make sense that they have to compete. So they have some sort of obstacle course that they have to go through, and Shoto met him there, but Shoto was kind of a dick to him, so he kind of was okay, maybe I don't like this guy, and the thing with this wind guy, he likes passion and wants it, but the wind guy actually ranked the best out of any of the recommendations, so he got a spot in there. It's still kind of a mystery of why he didn't take it. I'm starting to think it's maybe because Shoto also got in, but he wouldn't know that Shoto got in, so that's kind of an odd thing there. But he kind of goes, this character is interesting because he kind of talks about how it's when he was a kid, he looked up to Everlast, who's Shoto's father, and then when he went and asked for an autograph and everything, Everlast kind of just slapped the paper out of his hand. He's I don't have time for this, which to me, I'm that's not his job to sign your paper. His job is to actually save people. But I understand from a publicity standpoint that I get it, but to me, I'm that's kind of ridiculous. That's one of the reasons that this arc was a bit underwhelming for me, is that a lot of the conflicts, unlike the past 2.5 seasons, a lot of the conflict in this one does seem somewhat contrived. For example, like that, because what ends up happening is that the Wind Guy and Shoto start attacking Orca, who's the number 10 villain who fought alongside Best Genius and Mount Lady when they were fighting on with All Might against All for One when they took down that Nomu factory. But Orca, he's the number 10 villain, or the number 10 hero, sorry, and he like comes in to like shake things up a bit, because how this worked is that in the first half of the test here, you had to take out 2 people by hitting balls on 3 of their targets that are on their body. And if the first 100 people that did that got to move on. So everyone in Class 1A did that successfully. And then in the second half here, it's crisis response. So as long as you stay above 50 points and you start with 100 points, but they're only docked, so you can't regain any later. But as long as you stay above 50 points, you get your provisional hero license. Like you get your license, so then you can start acting like a pro hero in emergency situations. But what happens is Shoto and then this Wind Guy, who also doesn't get his license, basically started fighting while the villain was right there, sending people to attack the first aid station. And so, because they had such a big conflict with each other, and this Wind Guy got under Shoto's skin, so they basically used their attacks, counteracting one another's attacks against Orca, so that he just stands there unharmed. They do try to make up for it later, where they create a fire tornado to like weaken him, and then Deku comes in and kind of like hits him, but then the exam is over. But the problem with that is that you can't make up points. So once those points are gone, which they probably lost a lot of points by fighting with each other in front of a villain, but once those points are gone, it's over. So yeah, they failed, and the Bakugo failed, like I said, because he didn't know how to console people, which again, it's like you're being saved. Like I understand it's the most like serious part of your life, but you're being saved. As long as you save, I think you should be fine. But anyway, so that kind of goes through. And I know we're only at like 7 minutes here, but honestly, I don't have that much to say on this. What I have more to say about, really what makes this whole little arc, the Provisional Hero License Exam arc, worth it in my opinion, is that 61th, I don't know, that 61st episode, Deku versus Kachan Part 2. Now, this episode is the best episode in this half. Again, in my opinion, all this is in my opinion, but it is the best episode in this second half here of Season 3. You have some cool ones, obviously, throughout, but this one was it, because Kachan eventually, like, he comes to the realization that, because he hears stuff about, like, the all-for-one power and that villain, and he's like, okay, so Deku never got this, because Deku had revealed to him earlier that he didn't say All Might gave him the power, but he said someone gave me their power and I'm using it. So then Kachan figures out, Bakugo is Kachan. So Kachan figures out that that Deku was being serious, and that Deku inherited All Might's power, and Kachan's been living with this, knowing that it's like, why did he give it to you and not me? Like, we both loved him so much, we both looked up to him so much, were you just better than me and looking up to, like, stuff like that, right? And he's just getting in his head that maybe, like, he failed somehow, like, and why did All Might overlook him and all this, right? And he essentially asked Deku to fight him, because he's like, why did he choose you? There has to be a reason why he chose you. And so he asked him to fight. And by this time, they're obviously all moved into the dorms. They did that in the first episode of this season. They moved into dorms. And so Deku's like saying no, but eventually they do end up fighting each other, and it's pretty intense. And a lot of stuff. They structure this fight so well in the different breaks that they give it, with Kachan and Deku kind of being able to talk a bit throughout the fight. And, like, really, I would have said that okay, this is the thing, because you guys know that I've been saying, like, Kachan's going to either be a villain in, or Bakugo, sorry, I'm just going to call him Kachan, but Kachan's either going to be a villain in episode 3, which obviously he wasn't, he withheld from there, or episode 4. This was the episode where I'm pretty confident that he's no longer going to be a villain. And the reason being, because this episode established an important thing of mutual respect between Deku and Kachan understands. So what happens is All Might comes and tells Kachan everything about the one for all power, which is the power that Deku has now, and tells him everything about the history and all that. So basically what happened is Kachan is Deku's confidant, because like I said before, like they get to choose one person, and so Deku chose Kachan, is what it looks like, at least, with before when he told him, and then now All Might telling him everything. And so Kachan asks who knows about this, and All Might says me, you, and Deku, and then like two of the principal, and then one other, and the nurse lady. And so those 5 people at the school know about it. And Kachan's like, your secret's safe with me. Like, instantly. Like, he doesn't even hesitate. He's like, you can trust me. And, yeah, so that starts this mutual respect between Deku and Kachan now. They're rivals at this point. So it's like that frenemy situation, right? Where it's like Kachan actually does look at Deku like... not an equal, but he tells Deku, like, you better never let me win again if you're going to have this power. Because Kachan does ultimately win the fight, even though Deku does get a couple good hits in on him that he wasn't expecting. But he's like, you better never let me win again. You better be the best. And so they start... essentially, it's a rivalry where they can work with each other to better themselves, because they're both very competitive against each other. And this is where it comes out, like, Deku's saying, like, I always looked up to you in a way, like, I obviously... All Might was my hero, but you were the guy in my life that was like doing this. And so, because Kachan, I guess, misunderstood the whole thing why Deku was following him all the time. He thought that Deku looked down on him, but Deku was like, no, I looked up to you. You were my hero, like, in my personal life. Even though there was stuff that you did that I hated, I still respected you and admired you and wished I could be like you. And now I have the chance to be like you. So that it essentially goes through there. And so, like I was saying, very important stuff for them to get out. That's why I think this is the single best episode of this half of the season. It's one of my favorite episodes of the whole show, hands down. The only few that... maybe it's in my top 5, because the only few that I might put above it is the one where All Might fights the All for One villain. But this episode was so good. And then the last 2 episodes of this is a season for Encounters and Unrivaled. So in these 2, you had the big 3 introduce themselves. Which the big 3 are third years at UA that are just they're the top 3 in their class. That's what they call the big 3. And so in that you had... but real quick before I say this, with this fight that they do have, they actually do get under house arrest for... they do go under house arrest for 3 days for Deku and 4 days for Bakuga. And... so that kind of puts them in a situation where in these final 2 episodes, when school for the second semester does start again, they're where they're like falling behind their classmates, and there's this thing called work study, which looks like it's going to be a big part of season 4, where they can essentially go and work almost as like sidekicks or pro heroes. So it's a bit more than an internship, but it's extracurricular, so you're going to have to do it on your own time and do the classes at UA, unlike the internship where you did that for a week and then you came back. But yeah, so there's these final 2. I guess the main thing about that is the work study, and then there's the big 3 as well, who we're introduced to, which are those third-year students that are basically the top of UA. And the guy that Eraserhead says is going to be the next #1 hero spot, period, like even including pro heroes, is someone named Mirio Togata. And his thing is that he can, I believe it was called permeation is his power, where he can like phase through stuff. But the thing is, when he phases through stuff, he can't like see or feel or hear or anything like that, because essentially his body just through it, so it puts him on a different like phase, I guess. But he explains to them, I started out in like a horrible, like I wasn't good at all. I was on the bottom of the class so many times, like it was awful. But I got here through work study, because I got the experience to be the best and to work with the best. It gave me that experience to then use my power in a way that I can be the best. Because he actually says, like, to all of class 1A, he's like, fight me, I'll take you all on. He doesn't say it like that, but he's like, I'll take you all on, and to show you about this power, because he's a very cheerful guy, very friendly guy. And so they fight him, and he defeats them all very quickly, because he just phases through them and hits them all, and like goes through the ground and like basically teleports in a way, because he just shows up somewhere else. But he explains that it's through his experience and his practice in the real world, with the work study program, that he was able to be as powerful as he is. And then the other 2 in the big 3, there's Hado and Tamaki is his name. We don't really see their powers. I really wanted to, but we don't get to see them. But this guy, Togata, is insane. And so that's probably the highlight of that second arc there, which is the Hasaki arc. Yeah, that's basically it for this half of the season. This is a shorter recording, just because there wasn't too much that I was like super excited to talk about, except for that. Really, it was just that one episode, episode 61, which is just one of the best episodes so far, I think. But yeah, that's all I have to say, guys. Have a great rest of the time. I'm gonna continue watching, basically right after this recording, because I'm so excited to see what happens in episode 4. But have a good one.